Good afternoon. We're convening the Committee on Water, Land, Culture, and the Arts on our 1:05 p.m. agenda here in State Capitol Conference Room 224. I'll note today we have several agendas up, beginning with this one, and then a 1:15 joint agenda with our fellow committee from Economic Development. So we're going to be kind of bouncing back and forth between the agendas to accommodate everyone else's schedules. So just note, if you're here waiting around, there may be a little bit of pause on each agenda as we try and accommodate our fellow committee. So that said, we have a number of measures up on the agendas today. We've asked everyone to submit written testimony, so make sure that's in, and we'll be limiting oral testimony to 1 minute to make sure that we have a chance to get through everybody, because there are a number of folks signed up. So with that, we'll begin with HB 649 relating to small boat harbors, which establishes the Small Boat Harbor Commercial Vessel Special Fund and increases moorage fees for commercial vessels, requiring the revenue from the fee increase be used by DLNR for improvements that primarily benefit commercial vessels that utilize state small boat harbors, and makes other amendments. Testifying first is DLNR.
Hello, the Chair, Vice Chair, the Department stands on its written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is the Ocean Tourism Coalition on Zoom.
Good afternoon, Chair Lee, Vice Chair Inouye. Denver Kuhn on behalf of the Ocean Tourism Coalition. We're strongly against this bill. I have submitted written testimony, so I just want to add a couple points. The first being, a lot of my conversations that I've had with DOBOR in the past few years, it hasn't been a lack of funds for infrastructure. A lot of it's just the process, the procurement process and staffing. So concerned with raising fees without addressing those other systemic issues. We'll still run into the same issues. We'll be paying more, but still not seeing those improvements. The other thing is, our industry operates on very thin margins to begin with. Increasing the gross receipts fee, takes a lot of money off the top here. And we are not an industry that can increase our fees quickly. So again, we would just be asking you to defer this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Signed up to testify next is the Activity and Attractions Association of Hawaii on Zoom. Ms. Davis, are you there? Doesn't appear to be. Okay, let's see if can return. Oh, there you are.
I'm here. My camera wasn't coming up. I'm sorry. And I know you're in a rush. Can I give testimony, Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair. My name is Antoinette Davis on behalf of A3H. We support the special fund that's in this bill. The reinvestment of commercial vessels into the harbor improvements is a great thing. It's way overdue. But we respectfully oppose and ask that you defer this because it doesn't get specific numbers on the fees. They are vague and they are not specific. Not only are they not specific that are going to be charged to the boats, which was just mentioned. These are businesses that can't change their prices very easily. And they are already in a lot of hardship due to the economy, due to harbors being unavailable, lots of reasons. And there's no specific piece of that that goes to this special fund. So two pieces are missing, the percentage and how much goes to the special fund. We like the idea of running these as individual businesses. Thank you so much. I know you're short for time. Appreciate it. Available for questions. Mahalo.
Thank you. Up next is Calypso Charters.
Chair, Vice Chair, hi, Zach LaPratt here, Calypso Charters, speaking in support of the Ocean Tourism Coalition. I think it's worth quickly noting that I think there would be a lot more people at this hearing, but our particular industry is very busy with the weather and a lot of people couldn't make it. So I'd ask you to review the massive opposition to this bill last year, allow the written testimony that was submitted, including only comments from DLNR and opposition by Budget and Finance. And I'd also just like to quickly bring up that this will be, in essence, the fourth special fund that's created. Currently, we have the Boating Special Fund, we have the Ocean Stewardship Special Fund, They get the capital improvement projects, and this would be the small boat harbor commercial special fund. So just like Budget and Finance says in the testimony last year, do not support the special fund and stand on written testimony. Want to be available for any questions specific to our industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Testifying next is also on Zoom, Clayton Kubo.
Not present on Zoom, Chair.
Okay, that's everybody who had signed up to testify. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on HB 649? Oh, please come forward.
Yes, I too. Should I just stand here?
Come pull up a chair if you could identify yourself.
Yeah, of course. My name is Aaron Anderson. I'm a local commercial owner and operator for Hawai'i Dive Center, and we too would like to oppose and defer this bill. Like everyone else has also testified, it represents a great hardship to local businesses, and even though the small businesses don't represent the grandiose or the most use of the harbors, we see that they would then be carrying the majority of those costs and fees incurred. It really impacts not just local businesses on a grander scheme, but it affects the employees on a down to dollar basis. There's these jokes that all of us in the industry understand. The joke is that a large pizza is different from an instructor because it can actually feed a family of 4. It's a laughable joke, but those in the industry understand that this will it will be impacting and affecting every single individual who is an employee and employed here, and it's going to affect the bottom dollar for all the businesses. So we strongly oppose, and I'd be happy to take any other questions and stand on record as saying that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else on 649? Seeing none. Other questions? Just one for DLNR. Thanks. In your testimony, you guys had mentioned there was a separate bill that you had looked at or are looking at, and recommended making a whole bunch of amendments. Is that right?
Megan Stats, the voting administrator. Yes, that was House Bill 2477. The intent of what we were trying to do with House Bill 2477 was kind of expand the scope for all commercial use permits, surf schools, snorkeling tours, things that come from the shoreline rather than vessels, because as of right now, the only people that pay gross receipts is anybody coming from a small boat harbor. So what we were trying to do with this other bill was to ensure that all ocean operators are addressed equally. And that was what our suggestion was.
Okay.
And not necessarily to increase the percentage, but just to apply it
Yeah.
statewide.
Okay.
Where is HB 2477?
This was from last year. I believe it made it through the House, but never crossed over to the Senate. That's my understanding.
So we've never heard that measure then in the Senate at all.
I'm not sure.
Is it a companion?
I'm not sure if there's a companion or
Oh,
not.
okay.
No.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, everybody. Let's move on to the next measure, HB 2599, relating to aquatic protection, which has DLNR managing the aquatic life and resources of the state, giving priority to protecting, restoring, maintaining ecosystem integrity, using the best scientific data available, and setting goals to increase coral reef resilience. And testifying first is DLNR.
Chair, Vice Chair, Chair, members of the committee, Brian Nielsen, on behalf of DLNR, we stand on our written testimony and support.
Thank you. Also have testimony on Zoom from Kaimi Kapiko. Good afternoon.
Support of HB 2599. I submitted testimony earlier in regards to that bill, and I also supported testimony as well for 2218. I just wanted to stand on the need to continue to recognize highest priority for protecting and restoring and maintaining ecosystem integrity and the use of best available science in managing aquatic resources. And hoping that Department of Aquatic Resources to set core resilient goals for Oahu and build a framework that includes water quality, herbivore biomass, fishery management, enforcement, and core restoration. So for these reasons, I myself, Kalani Hale, strongly support 2599. Mahalo.
Thank you. That's everyone who had signed up to testify in HB 2599. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Seeing none, are there any questions? Seeing none. All right, thanks, everybody. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We have a number of the measures still left on our 1:05 p.m. water land agenda. So we're going to take a quick recess out of that because we do have our 1:15 joint agenda. So we'll move into that 1:15, we'll run through that, and then we'll come back and pick up where we left off on our 1:05 p.m. water land agenda. So with that, we'll recess our 1:05 agenda. All right, good afternoon. We're convening the Joint Committees on Economic Development and Tourism and Water, Land, Culture, and the Arts on our 1:15 p.m. joint agenda here in State Capitol Conference Room 224. We've got a number of bills up, so we'll ask everyone to limit your testimony to 1 minute so that we have enough time to make sure that all the testifiers can have their moment. And with that, we'll start with HB 2118 relating to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, which transfers the State Foundation on Culture and the Arts and the King Kamehameha Celebration Commission from DAGS to DBED. And signed up to testify first on that measure is the State Foundation on Culture and the Arts on Zoom.
Not present on Zoom, Chair.
Okay. We also have the King Kamehameha Celebration Commission on Zoom. Good afternoon. Oh, you're muted there. You can unmute yourself.
Hello, I'm sorry. I'm not sure if you can hear me. This is Amy Hammond. I'm the Executive Director for the King Kamehameha Celebration Commission, and I stand on my written testimony in support of the transfer from DAGS to DBED of my department, along with the position funds as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's everybody who had signed up on HB 2118. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in this measure? Hearing none, are there any questions?
I got a quick question.
Sure.
For King Kamehameha Celebration Commission.
Aloha.
Hi. So although, we have broad support for this measure to transfer to DBED, why not another agency like OHA or Hawaiian Homes Commission?
This is a proposal that was just brought to us. We're not sure. I'm not sure personally, actually, even how it got started, other than that perhaps they're thinking that it might align us more closely with the visitor industry and hopefully maintaining the cultural significance as well.
But would you entertain the idea if it was to go to OHA or Hawaiian Homes Commission?
I would have to discuss it with our commission because I speak primarily on behalf of them. But my understanding is that it was primarily just to help us facilitate some of the administrative services and to help us also align with some of the elements that may be able to make the activities more successful statewide.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Question?
Vice Chair.
Yes. We had heard from one of the GMs or a new commissioner onto the commission, and we were at the interview stage in Waterland, and the subject with regards to OHA contributing or not contributing, in the event it happens in your discussions going forward, we'd appreciate that the discussions continue, because you know, OHA is, that's one of the responsibilities to help cultural programs as well as supporting the ethnic culture. And so just a reminder that make sure that there's pressure on OHA participating. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, moving on to HB 2474 relating to international relations. Chair Lee.
Oh, yep. Thanks very much. This authorizes the governor and legislature to enter into non-binding international cooperative agreements with foreign national governments and subnational governments. Testifying first is DBED.
Aloha chairs, vice chairs, committee member Dennis Ring from DBED. DBED stands in strong support of this measure.
Thank you. That's everyone who had signed up to testify in this measure. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Seeing none, are there any questions?
Question for DBED. Dennis, are there any international cooperative agreements that you would like to pursue if this bill passes?
Well, there are probably two that are very important to us. I think one is New Zealand, and the other one might be Singapore. Those are countries, that's why we, and they don't have provinces or states, so it's very hard to enter into sister relationships.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing, Senator Chang.
Sure, for Dennis again. Could you just talk a little bit more about the nature of the relationship with Singapore?
I think Singapore has been very helpful with the innovation sector, especially in the food and product innovation sector. They have a facility as well as organizations that can help promote the, help encourage the growth of the innovation in food. They're very well advanced in that area. So it's something that we could learn from. So that would be a very strong area to go towards. Also, housing, I believe, is another area.
Do they have these types of agreements with other jurisdictions?
Singapore, that is? That I don't know.
Chair?
Vice Chair?
Dennis?
Yes.
What about Vietnam?
Vietnam is a country.
Oh, okay.
So there are provinces that at once we have tried to get into a relationship with.
And reason I asked the question is because we have so many Vietnamese people arriving into Hawaii, and no different than Big Island. And, you know, the relationship there has been wonderful, you know, with their food as well as the relationship. So I was just curious because there's a big population in our state.
Yes, and I think the Vietnamese culture has been sort of becoming mainstream within Hawaii.
Oh, yes. Okay. All right. That's to be considered, I think, as well. Thank you.
Chair Wakai.
You know, Dennis, I mean, I think we see the value of these sister city relations, but at a certain point, like, we just pile more and more on with, and a lot of these sister city relationships are based on one individual from that community that pushes it, and then they retire, they pass on or whatever, and there's nothing that's vibrant anymore. As we look at adding more sister city relations on, can we also look at, like, if this thing has been dormant for 10 years, I mean, we need to get rid of some of these as well, correct?
That's very correct. I think we will be establishing a sister state commission and international commission because the previous sister state committee was done away with, was repealed. And we will be establishing a new commission, and that will be part of the agenda to review the sister states that we have existing now, which are pretty much dormant.
So what would happen then to Jeju Island? Because Jeju is a sister state.
Yes, but Jeju is quite active.
Yes, okay. So
Yeah. So they
so
wouldn't.
it's not stopping the program in its entirety then?
No,
We'll just look
no.
at the country or the.
Yeah,
Okay.
the areas that have not had much activities.
Because they're active.
They are.
Thank you.
further questions?
Seeing none, let me turn it over to my co-chair.
Thank you, Chair. Next up, HB 1863 HD1 relating to an honorary ambassador to Canada. It establishes an honorary ambassador to Canada position within Business Development Support Division of the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism. First up, Dennis Ling for DBID.
Yeah, DBID stands in support of this motion.
Thank you. Okay, we have no one else for this measure. Any questions? Seeing none. Okay, moving on to HB 1943 HD1 relating to economic development, which expands the purposes of the establishment and operation of out-of-state offices to include collaboration with tourism agencies and stakeholders to execute tourism strategies, requires and appropriates funds for the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism to establish the out-of-state office in Seoul, Republic of Korea, appropriates funds to DBID and Tourism's Beijing, Philippines, and Taipei offices to promote made in Hawaii branded products and increase the export of Hawaii products. First up, Dennis Ling for DBID.
Yes, DBID offers common services.
Thank you. Next up, Dave Erdman, Interim President and CEO for Retail Merchants of Hawaii.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you and aloha. Chairs, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Dave Erdman. I'm the Interim President and CEO of Retail Merchants of Hawaii. Retail Merchants of Hawaii supports HB 1943 HD1. The measure strengthens Hawaii's international economic development efforts by supporting out-of-state offices, including now a potential new Seoul office, Beijing, Taipei, and the Philippines to promote made in Hawaii products and expand exports. For retailers, local manufacturers, and our logistics partners, export growth creates opportunities to scale beyond Hawaii's limited local market, diversify revenue, and support jobs across the retail supply chain. Aligning trade promotion with tourism strategies also helps convert visitors into long-term customers in their home markets. For those reasons, Retail Merchants respectfully supports this measure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up, Sherry Manor for Chamber of Commerce in support. William Ananson for Maritime Group also in support, and Pam Tumpop from Maui Chamber of Commerce in support. Anybody else wishing to testify on the measure? Seeing none, members, any questions? Okay. DBID, please. So Dennis, you guys have testified that the office would need an appropriation of $233,500 to operate. How would you determine the state's return on investment if we were to establish the office?
Well, Korea is a thriving market, and they are purchasers of several of our goods as well as services. And we think with an office there that there might be opportunities to promote Hawaii's goods and services, as well as working in conjunction with the tourism office. It's synergistic. So it wouldn't be two separate offices. It would be one synergistic office promoting tourism products and services, as well as investment attraction into the state.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to HB 2604 HD2 relating to performing arts, establishes a performing arts ticket surcharge on the primary ticket sale price for certain performing arts events held in the state. First up, Karen Ewald, testifying for State Foundation on Culture and the
Not
Arts.
present. Oh, not present on Zoom, Chair.
Thank you. Next up, Department of Taxation.
Department of Taxation will stand on our comments available for questions.
Thank you. Next up, Tom Yamachika with Tax Foundation of Hawaii on Zoom.
Good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committees. Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation. We have some concerns about this bill because we already have a comprehensive tax applying to the industry, namely the GET, and we don't see the justification for singling tickets out and subjecting them to higher tax. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, William Caron, as an individual in opposition, and Linmore Kami Akatsuka, also in opposition. Anyone else wishing to testify on the measure? Seeing none, members, any questions? Tax Foundation, please. Tom, would you consider this surcharge a tax increase, and can you recommend a non-tax method that could generate these revenues?
If you want to generate revenues, it depends on what they're for. I mean, if they're for general government, then it's going to be a tax. If it's a user fee for using the arena or whatever assets there are, then I think that's probably taken care of at the city level.
Okay,
or
thanks,
whichever
Tom.
venue
Thank you.
is running the place.
Thank you. Members, any other questions?
Just one. While you're here, Tom, thanks. My understanding for this is the money would theoretically go into funding additional performing arts for local venues and stuff like that. Is there enough of a nexus there in your mind then that basically if you had like a fee rather than a tax for that sort of thing, that would make sense?
It has currently drafted the measure of the tax.
Right. So I'm saying if it's a fee because of the nexus rather than a tax.
Well, as currently drafted, because the revenues go to support not only the place that you're performing in, but every other productions everywhere, that wouldn't be considered a fee, that'd be considered a tax.
Right, I'm saying we'd amend it such that there's the clear nexus, so it could be a fee. Would that still make sense in your mind, is what I'm getting at?
I mean, you could amend it so that it becomes a fee. Yes, that's possible. I mean, if it were to support the venues at which the concerts or whatever are being performed.
Okay. Thanks, Chair. Is that the last one? Oh. Yeah, short recess.
Short recess.
All right, good afternoon. We're reconvening the Joint Committees on Economic Development and Tourism and Water, Land, and Culture and the Arts on our 1:15 p.m. joint agenda for decision-making, beginning with House Bill 2118 relating to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. I'd like to recommend moving this measure forward, chairs having conferred, but blanking out the appropriation, putting that into the committee report and changing the effective date to January 1, 3000. Any discussion? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
For the Committee on Water, Land, Culture, and the Arts, Chair's recommendation on HB 2118, House Draft 2, to pass with amendments. Chair Lee.
Aye.
Vice Chair goes aye. Senator Chang.
Aye.
Senator Lamusao is excused, and Senator Decourt is excused. Measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Committee on Economic Development and Tourism, same recommendation. Any discussion? See none, Vice Chair Kai for the vote, Chair goes aye.
I vote yes. Senator Fukunaga.
Aye.
Senator Kim and Favela excused. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the next measure, HB 2474 relating to international relations. I'd like to recommend moving this forward with amendments, but those amendments would include fixing the definition of sister state relationships such that we're also able, I think, to the testifier's point, have relationships with national governments, especially because some countries don't have subnational governments. So clarifying that and then adding a separate definition for international cooperative agreement, which shall mean a formal recognition of a joint agreement with a focus on an issue of mutual interest or concern between the state of Hawaii and another subnational government, such as a state, province, prefecture, or other jurisdiction as may be appropriate, or that national government. Secondly, we'll address some of the testimony, the written testimony on relationships with other jurisdictions that may be politically concerning or compromising. So just to ensure public transparency, we'll amend the measure also such that the governor, legislature, and sister state commission may propose sister state partnerships and international cooperative agreements through their respective channels, which then shall be approved by the legislature, where we have public hearings and transparency in the same way we do now, passing resolutions to establish sister state relationships, to clarify that, for example, in the current case, we don't have to pass a resolution to ask the sister state commission to then set something up and then come back and pass another resolution. So it streamlines the whole process while ensuring transparency all around, and then making non-substantive tech amendments. So any discussion there? Seeing none, Vice Chair.
Okay. Chair's recommendation on the Committee of Water, Land, Culture, and the Arts on HB 2474, House Draft 1, to pass with amendments, with 3 members present, any with reservations, any no votes, and excused Chair Senators Lamasau and Decourt. Measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Committee on Economic Development and Tourism, same recommendation. Any discussion? See none, Vice Chair Okai for the vote. Chair goes aye.
I vote yes. Senator Fukunaga?
Aye.
Senator Kim Favela, excused. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to HB 1863. We're going to look at passing with an SD1, making any technical and non-substantive amendments and redefecting the effective date to July 1st, 3050. Any discussion? Seeing none, Vice Chair Okai for the vote. Chair goes aye.
I vote yes. Senator Fukunaga?
Aye.
Senator Kim Favela, excused. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you.
Same recommendation for Water, Land Committee.
Okay, for the Committee on Water, Land, Culture, and the Arts, Chair's recommendation to pass HB 1863, House Draft 1, with amendments, with 3 members present, any voting with reservations, any no votes, with 2 excused Senators Lamasau and Decourt. Measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, HB 1943, HD1, relating to economic development. We are looking at passing this with an SD1. Note that on page 1, line 17, and page 4, line 10, reference DBED's Philippines out-of-state office. DBED does not have an office in the Philippines. To correct this, insert new language requiring DBED to establish an out-of-state office in Laog City in the province of Ilocos Norte in the Philippines, and making any technical and non-substantive amendments and redefecting the effective date to July 1st, 3050. Any discussion? See none, Vice Chair Okai for the vote. Chair goes aye.
I vote yes. Senator Fukunaga?
Aye.
Senator Kim and Favela, excused. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Water, Land Committee, same recommendation.
Okay, Chair's recommendation on HB 1943, House Draft 1, with amendments, with 3 members present, any voting with reservations, any no votes, with 2 excused. Mr. Chair, measure is adopted.
Thank you.
Next up, HB 2604. Based on a testimony from DOTAX and Tax Foundation and others, my recommendation is to defer this bill. We don't need a tax increase, and as one testifier stated, we should be encouraging participation in the arts and not making it more expensive. With that, I will defer this measure. Thank you.
And with that, we're adjourned. Good afternoon. We're reconvening the Committee on Water, Land, Culture, and the Arts on our 1:05 p.m. agenda here in State Capitol Conference Room 224. Thanks everyone for your patience while we had another joint committee hearing. We were on HB 2395 relating to the taking of marine deposits, which authorizes the Department of Land and Natural Resources to approve permits for research, education, management, or propagation purposes that include taking of marine deposits of stuff seaward of the shoreline under certain conditions. Testifying first is the Department of Land and Natural Resources.
DLNR stands on its written testimony.
Thank you. That's everyone who signed up to testify on 2395. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Seeing none, are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Let's move on to the next measure, HB 2361, relating to the Kaneohe Bay Regional Council, which requires DLNR to provide administrative support to the Kaneohe Bay Regional Council. Testifying first is DLNR.
DLNR stands on its written testimony and so far.
Thank you. That's everyone who signed up to testify. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Seeing none, are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Moving on to HB 1823, relating to the Coastal Zone Management Act, which specifies certain activities should be exempt from special management area use permit requirements and exempt state, federal, and county funded infrastructure improvement projects from an environmental assessment, projects that are exempt already from an environmental assessment or for which a finding of no significant impact has been issued. Testifying first on 1823 is the Office of Hawaiian Affairs.
Aloha Chair Lee, Vice Chair Noi, and members of the committee. My name is Lealoha Makuanani on behalf of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. We oppose this bill. As part of our OHA mandates, we regularly review SMA permit applications and environmental assessments. So we're very familiar with both of those processes. Our concerns here is that this measure uses language that overextends the bill's stated intent to streamline essential public infrastructure and would actually include almost any private development project that is approved by an agency and determined exempt from an environmental assessment or receives a finding of no significant impact. The issue with using is with using the language where it states that the federal, state, or county authorized projects, and also including the term improvement projects. Together, an authorized improvement project could cover essentially any type of project far outside of the scope of essential public infrastructure. And we also emphasize that SMA requirements are narrowly focused to review impacts in that are shoreline specific, while environmental reviews cover a much broader scope. So from our review experience, even where a project may not result. Sorry?
Oh, if you could summarize your time.
Okay. Yeah, where it may not result in significant overall impacts, the SMA permit may still be necessary for those smaller scope public beach protections and access rights and such. So for those reasons, we oppose the bill and ask to defer. Mahalo for your time.
Thank you. Okay, signed up next is OPSD. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. You have our written testimony in support. I want to clarify a couple of apparent misunderstandings by those who oppose it. One is that special management area is equal to shoreline area. They're two very different things. And these types of projects cannot be done in a shoreline area at all, so that protects our shoreline area, and that protection remains. The other point that I want to make is that any government agency action that is determined to be exempt within Chapter 343 still requires a public notice of exemption to be published in the environmental notice. So that gives the public awareness of that. And of course, if they're also subject to environmental assessment, that has opportunities for public input on the project. So that, thank you.
Thank you. Testifying next is Grassroot Institute. Sierra Club on Zoom.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Wayne Tanaka with Sierra Club of Hawaii. We're in opposition to this measure, both with it in its intent and in its as drafted. First, I want to, I think we've already clarified the shoreline versus special management area distinction in this bill. So I think it's a little bit of a red herring in terms of what the opposition is saying. Beyond that, the intent of the bill to roll back coastal protections and oversight in taxpayer-funded projects is, I think, especially in these last couple of weeks, is just not a good idea. Like we need more mind decision making and project planning when we're dealing in our coastal areas, especially with the threats of floods and groundwater intrusion and so forth. But I also want to emphasize really quickly, this bill goes much farther than what its stated intent is. So if you look at the language on page 3, lines 12 to 14, where it says that whole list of things should be exempt from special management area use permit requirements, that language suggests it's either superfluous or it's suggesting that all of these things should be exempted from an SMA permit, even if they have the significant impacts or cumulative impacts, which is the catch-all at the end of.
If you could summarize.
Yeah. So all I'd say, we just think this measure is overbroad. It's misguided, and we respectfully ask that you hold this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. That's, I believe, everyone who had signed up to testify on this measure. There's a whole bunch of other written testimony. Is there anyone else in the room wishing to testify in this measure? Or on Zoom, for that matter? All right, hearing none, other questions? Real quick for OPSD. Thanks. You'd mentioned a lot of, well, it's hearing the other testifiers and whatnot, but you'd mentioned the projects contemplated by this bill cannot be done near a shoreline anyway. Can you expand on that?
So the counties established the special management areas, creating their own boundaries that are generally wider than a shoreline parcel, usually a fairly broad area. So the shoreline parcels, most of those, they include a shoreline setback. And those shoreline setback areas can't have these kinds of projects in them anyway. So our shoreline is protected, but we have development in special management areas. In fact, 205A does not prohibit development in special management areas. It does allow the county authorities to determine what's appropriate. And in this case, this would add to the list of 23 other exempt actions that the legislature has added to this statute over the years that then are able to be built without a special management area permit. And I think maybe there's some confusion that the amendment on page 3 to does not include, development does not include, means that all of these 23 current exemptions are being proposed de novo now. They're already in there, and we're only suggesting a 24th one, which would be those federal, state, and county infrastructure projects. And we think that that will be a way to streamline getting those projects done.
So for the list that's listed here, and sorry, I'm going back to the hearing we had on this similar bill, a month ago.
Yeah.
The list includes, for the purposes of this paragraph, infrastructure includes water lines, water facilities, wastewater facilities, communications, electrical, television, roadway, bridge, driveway improvements. Along the shoreline, don't a lot of those things exist right on the shoreline right now?
Yes. So for instance, Cam Highway out at Ka'ava, those are grandfathered in because they've been there for 100 years, and they, can be protected if they're damaged, if they're, if a authority decides that that is necessary for critical services to those communities. So you'll see that, DOT does go and try to repair those when there is, undermining by wave erosion. This would mean that kind of repair, which is already actually exempted, would not require an SMA permit. And I think that's the clarification that allows the counties to be clear about what their obligation is for these exemptions, and the other ones that are listed as new language in that proposed section X.
Right. So for a new project, let's say, or even just a maintenance project. Well, let's take the North Shore example you cited, right?
Yes.
The highway's falling into the ocean, and so if DOT wants to come in and repair that, under this bill, or sorry, under the current law, they don't need to come in if they're just doing repair work.
That's correct.
For an environmental assessment, is what you're saying.
They do environmental assessments and EISs, and those get published in the environmental notice. So the public does have an opportunity to comment, and for an EIS, they have to hold a public hearing. So that is not affected by this proposed measure at all.
I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean exempt from EA, but exempt from the SMA permit.
Yeah, they're already.
Yeah.
They're
okay.
exempted.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And then for
Yeah.
Sierra Club, real quick.
Mary Alice, I'm gonna, stay here, thank you.
Thanks. So Wayne, hearing the conversation going on, is that your interpretation as well that even prior to this bill, those sorts of projects just in that area would already be exempt from an SMA permit?
No, that's not quite correct. So that long laundry list of things that are generally exempted from the definition of development that triggers SMA permits, they would be under current law recaptured under that definition. So they would still count as development if they have a cumulative impact or significant environmental or ecological effect on the special management area. And so that's a safeguard, right? In case you have a big project that's going to cause massive erosion or going to have other ecological impacts, it still gets captured under the SMA permit requirements currently. This bill's language would totally exempt all projects, even if there are massive impacts to the coastal areas, under the language it's added under, on page 3. Now I see Mary Alice shaking her head. With all respect, I mean, that language was added in at the request of OPSD specifically to clarify that SMA permit is not required for those exempted definitions. So I mean, that's one of the concerns about the overbreadth. It opens the door way bigger than just providing a limited exception for, these infrastructure type projects.
Thanks, Vice Chair.
Yes, but Wayne, on page 2, it does say it's certain activities should be exempt, so it's not everything, my understanding, correct?
Yeah, so it's that list of A, B, C, D. So, everything from, demolition of structures or like single family homes or, installation of underground utility lines. Like all of these things are generally already exempt, but if it's going to have a really big impact, you still have to get an SMA permit. Our concern is the language of this bill now makes it so even if there's a big impact, they don't need to get the SMA, and then they don't need to have the added level of mindfulness and oversight that permitting would provide.
But specifically on item 2, we're only talking about the federal state funded projects. It's not talking about any other areas like residentials as well.
Yeah, that's the intent of the bill, but the way it's drafted, especially with the language on page 3, lines 12 to 14, that added language, that's what makes it broader than just the infrastructure items.
Oh, where it says does not include the following and the following should be exempt.
Yes, yeah.
So maybe some language corrections or something? Well,
It's not the intent to exclude significant or cumulative impacts, because those should go through not only a 343 environmental disclosure, but also an SMA permit if there are significant or cumulative impacts.
oh, you know what, too, I can see what he's saying, because in A, it does say single-family residence. Well, one reason, Wayne, is concerning with your opposition, as an example, Big Island, the falling bridge at Coconut Island, is one big, major construction that will be starting by the county. And the state's, the Singing Bridge right outside of downtown Hilo is going to go to a massive reconstruction of that bridge. And if this helps, the county, because it's a state, and actually it's two funded projects, federal and state, given to the county, so.
So probably have a HEPA and a NEPA disclosure process. with
Okay,
public-
so,
public input.
but further, Mary Alice, you did say we have 23 projects already in the exemption list, but you did say this will add 24. But are you saying 24 in general of many projects, or only one item of having to add one to increase the number to 24? Because there's,
Just the language in the proposed section X in the bill. On page 8, as Wayne noted, so it's federal, state, and county authorized or implemented infrastructure improvement projects. And so either they are determined to be de minimis by a department's exemption list, or which is concurred to by the Environmental Advisory Council and published in the environmental notice, or they are for which a finding of no significant impact has been issued, which means they got an environmental assessment.
okay, so the language that Wayne mentions, and for our sake, do you think that we need to make some amendments to the language in this bill?
Well, considering that there seems to be considerable concern, and I took a quick look at the opposition testimony, and it all seemed to be extremely, concerned that this was way broader than the
Okay.
intent. So I think maybe something to reduce to make sure that it's clear that this is a limited.
Can you help and offer some amendments to the chair?
Yes, we can.
If the chair agrees, and see if we want to move this measure forward.
Up to the chair.
Okay, all right, but at least clean up the language so there's no misunderstanding. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, further,
Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you.
further questions? Seeing none, thanks. Let's move on to the next measure. HB 1842, relating to government, which amends Act 289 to replace parcels that are being potentially swapped between the state and the county. So testifying first on HB 1842 is, Attorney General.
Chair, Vice Chairs, members of the committee. The Office of the Attorney General offers comments in an effort to clarify which state agency will be responsible for management of the properties transferred from this act. I'll be available for any questions. Thank you.
Thanks. Up next is Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. DLNR Land Division drafted the testimony on this one. We stand by our concerns and our written comments on this one, but we're here for to answer any questions you guys have. Thank you.
Thank you. That's everyone who had signed up to testify on HB 1842. Is there any other, is anyone else wishing to testify in this measure? All right, seeing none other questions.
This bill seems like it's almost similar to the bill we had last year on the acquisition of Ali'i Tower.
Yeah.
And working with the city and county in some of the projects, such as Ala Park, I think I remember. So what does this do now? This
So it
measure
gives them-
compared to the one we had last year?
So last year's one, it was Liliha Civic Center. Now they're
Correct.
swapping it for West Ridge, which is out by Pearl Ridge It's like a two-story commercial center. It's one of our fourth highest income generating properties. And as currently written, as the AG's office has stated, currently we don't have management rights over Ali'i Tower if it was to come to us because it's excluded from 171(2).
Okay, hold on a second now. So Westridge is, we own it?
Yes, the state of Hawaii is the
Now,
owner.
now I remember looking at, remembering last year's one, I think it went through a subdivision, an entire subdivision, and the housing agency rejected that proposal to give to the city. So this Westridge is a condominium?
No,
Oh,
it's
what
a
is it?
commercial. It's like a two-floor commercial place near Pearl Ridge Shopping Center.
Okay, and that's owned by?
That's owned by the state.
The state,
Yes.
okay. So what we're saying is you're disputing that action? Is that
Correct. Yes.
Okay, we don't want it to be part of the negotiations.
No, thank you.
Okay, and then, so are we saying that this, similar to the bill last year, that the measure is to acquire Ali'i Tower?
So what they want to do is they want to swap, right? They want the county to give us Ali'i and then and for the
And all
state
these
to
things.
give all these things. Yes.
Okay, so there were some disputes with the bill last year. Not disputes, but the legislature did not pass the measure yet because of the ownership of Ali'i Tower that was questionable. There's an owner.
Correct.
And there's all these tenants, HECO, city and county.
Yes.
I think HECO has like
Over
6
half.
floors, half of that. There's an owner. Okay, all right. We'll see what happens then. Okay, maybe stall again. I am not sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Real
all
quick,
right.
before you
Oh,
go.
Thanks.
Thanks. So I wasn't here for last year's discussion, but reading into the testimony, so DLNR's concern is, I have to imagine, less so the specific parcel itself, but rather the revenue stream that comes from it. Is that right?
Well, there's two problems overall with the bill. One is, yes, the revenue source that gets taken away from the SLDF, right? It's our fourth highest. Without it, we'd have to come in and ask for general fund appropriation. The second part is that under 171(2), right, it exempts certain things from public lands. This particular Ali'i Tower is exempt from public land. So DLNR couldn't manage the building. However, right, the intent of the house, I believe it was for office space use for the state agencies.
To have DAGs do it.
So DAG could do space lease, but DAG can't hold a ground lease. So it's kind of a catch-22, which is, I think, why AGs is asking to strike out
So
section.
if you guys had the ground lease, then theoretically, would the revenue also come back to you for that particular property?
Theoretically, yes, through the sandwich lease, the sublease process, yeah, we could pick up revenues in that case if it wasn't exempted.
So does that resolve all the concerns then?
Uh,
Assuming it's like, let's
Not
say.
necessarily, because we don't know what the financials are on the city side. We don't have access to those.
But if it were?
I mean, if it could balance out and we could get access to that information and make an educated decision the same way the city has requested, I think, it's something that we could negotiate at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, more questions, because some of the items, the TMKs are different from last year. So just to get this.
Oh, are they?
Yes. Now, Ala Park, we only know that, and Chair, I don't know if you knew that, I did know that, but Ala Park is one park. Half of the one park is city and half of the other park, but it's one park.
Okay.
So only half of the Ala Park is now considered going to the city. So the full park.
Yeah.
Okay, we got half a park. Now, what is this TMK Morgue addition? Or Margu, I don't know, what's the MORGUE? And
It's all within the same area. This is our new administrator, Senator Inoue. This is, and
You're Craig. No,
No,
you're.
No, Seiji.
This is Seiji Ogawa.
Seiji, okay,
Nice to meet you.
yes, okay.
So the morgue is the medical examiner's office for the county.
Where?
It's in EVLA.
Okay.
Right
It's
next to
also
IHS.
all in
It's
yeah,
all
yeah, all
supposed to
the
be in that
evenly
one
stuff,
same
yeah.
area, so that's why we
Yeah,
said that
okay.
in the future, right, for the city, it would
Okay.
make sense because it's all that one
Okay,
area.
but the last year's bill was referencing the acquisition of Ali'i Tower for the movement of the capital. That was the bill. Okay, now later, I guess after the capital, we all move there, then it becomes the part of, if it becomes part of the state, then it gets to be used for offices. But this one here is acquisition on this bill is for office space then.
Well, my understanding
Like
from the
that's-
House hearing, right, is that they wanted it to use for the capital, but again, there's no empty spaces. I think.
Yeah, there- none at all. I've been there, so.
I don't know how that would.
Okay,
would
all right,
work, yeah.
okay. It doesn't seem like it's gonna work. No, now, from your perspective, did the city,
They had testimony.
no, they did have a testimony. Who is it from?
Mayor's office.
Yeah, Mark for me.
Oh, oh, okay, I see it. Okay, oh, he has comments. Okay, all right, we'll just, all right, think about it. Okay, thank you. Thanks for being here, I appreciate it. Thanks, Chair.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, everybody. Let's move on to the last measure on our agenda this afternoon, HB 2218, relating to the Department of Land and Natural Resources, which authorizes DLNR to enter into community co-management agreements and establishes procedures and qualifications. And testifying first on 2218 is the Hawai'i, that can't be right. No, DLNR. Thank you. Hawaii State Youth Commission on Zoom.
Aloha, my name is Melik Koneali'i, speaking on behalf of the Youth Commission and strong support. We stand on our written testimony and highlight that this measure also creates meaningful opportunities for place-based learning, especially at a time when environmental literacy is urgent. Expanding community-based co-management helps bridge this gap by connecting young people directly to the lands, practices, and communities that have sustained Hawaii's natural resources for generations. Mahalo.
Thank you. Office of Hawaiian Affairs on Zoom.
Aloha, Chair Lee, Vice Chair Inoue, and members of the committee. My name is Sharday Freitas, a public policy advocate with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. We stand on our written testimony in support of this measure. We urge the committee to pass. Mahalo.
Thank you. Next is Kua.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Olande Momi Fisher with Kua'aina Ulua Wamo. We stand on our written testimony and strong support. We've helped with the development of this bill from the very beginning. And I just wanted to highlight that the 5-year reviews that was added in the HD1 version is unnecessary. And the confusion that there has been about whether this would allow for any fee simple sale, it doesn't. It would allow for only 65 years maximum under these types of agreements. So we're here for any questions, and thank you for hearing it. Aloha.
Thank you. Just like online, Hui Maka Inana Omakana.
Billy Keeney, Assistant Director of the Hui Makainana o Makana. We stand on our written testimony in strong support. With only the consideration that if Kua's testimony addresses some of the concerns that were spoken of that Olan just addressed, and also the 5-year review that was included in the HD2 version, I think that's a little bit unnecessary, and I would strongly urge the committee to pass this measure, but without the 5-year review addition of HD2. Mahalo.
Thank you. Mr. Wickman.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Chipper Wickman here, founding director of the Hui Makainano Makana and current vice president of the board. We stand on my written testimony, but also just wanted to emphasize our strong support for Kua's testimony and the unnecessary It's unnecessary having a 5-year review in there, and as well as the misunderstanding around the term disposition. So I'm glad that that was previously clarified. If there's any questions, I also want to say, and it's in my testimony, but in drafting this bill, we thought long and hard about how organizations would need to qualify for a community co-management agreement, and that's very well detailed in the bill. And so hopefully, if there's any questions on that, you'll raise it. Olan there in the room can answer any of them. So thank you. I'm available as well for any questions. Aloha.
Thank you. Up next, Moana Ohana on Zoom.
Not present on Zoom, Chair.
Thank you. Sierra Club on Zoom.
Sorry. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Oh, here we go. Sorry, it's not letting me. Okay, there we go. Oh, Sierra Club Hawai'i, we are in strong support of this bill. Just echoing the remarks of the previous testifiers regarding the kind of arbitrary and superfluous 5-year review requirement that could limit the potential of this, the great potential of this bill, just because of the administrative burdens that requirement would create. Otherwise, happy to answer any questions, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Online again, Kalani Hale.
Aloha, everyone. I do support strongly HB 2218 as well. I submitted written testimony. I also agree with previous testifiers, KUA, regarding the additional 5-year review is unnecessary. If you have any questions, I'm more likely to answer. Mahalo.
Thank you. And then finally, on Zoom, Kurt Cottrell.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. Good to see you guys. Can you hear me and see me?
We can't. Oh, yep, got you.
Anyway, Kurt Cottrell, and I am in strong support of this measure as well. And I want to amplify what everyone else has said. This is just another example where the relationships that DLNR has developed with our co-managers are moving a little faster than the statutes. And so the statutes, and thank you for hearing this, need to catch up so that we can not only get some of these locked in like at Ha'ena, but there is a strong amount of support to do this statewide in other communities. And this just adds tools to the tool shed to diversify how government can collaborate with our communities on co-management. So thank you for hearing the measure, and I suggest you change the date. Thank you.
Thank you. That's everyone who had signed up to testify on HB 2218. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Good afternoon.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Hannah Lisiak, and I'm testifying on behalf of the Ocean Legislative Task Force in strong support of this measure. This measure emphasizes the role that communities can play in caring for our lands and our waters through structured partnerships with the state. And we also appreciate that this measure recognizes the long-standing Native Hawaiian and community stewardship traditions that have helped sustain natural and cultural resources for generations. Our coalition represents over 150 individuals across over 20 organizations. And we'd also like to echo the testimony from KUA and their recommendations on this measure. I want to thank you for hearing this measure, and
Thank you. Anyone else on this measure? All right, seeing none. Thank you, everybody. Are there questions?
Yeah, DLNR.
And hopefully if Kurt's online, I got a couple for Kurt.
Yeah. Okay, my question is with reference to the leases. If the lease also includes a nonprofit or organization, and they do a collection system, monetary, such as if they want to, like have a parking, but they'll be charging for the parking and the fee collection, and future, what happens if there's any infrastructure improvements, such as the pavement of the road or parking lot is, got the potholes, we need to fix it. But here in the meantime, there were fees that were charged to a nonprofit. Where does the state, are they totally involved with making sure that there's the infrastructure being supported by the state, doing a grant or fixing the road, or the obligation to fix the road, that the state will be responsible for the infrastructure or the community? How
Thank you.
would that take into consideration?
Thank you, Senator. Pi'ikea Tomzik, DLNR State Parks. That's why it's a co-management. We would work with them on how to move forward on these types of projects. Currently, some of the projects are paid for with the fees that they collect, and some of it we take care of.
Oh, okay.
And so it depends on what it is and the amount that is needed for the project.
Okay, now there's some areas that may be leased out, but if it's going to be open to the general public or visitors or whatever, and there's no infrastructure like bathrooms, if it's, so would DLNR just lease out a parcel, knowing that there's no other improvements to the parcel, or would you be in particular responsible for finding the location of a lease arrangement, making sure everything is addressed, or decide if a community wants to have this parcel, then they give you their plans, and I would think that you would do that first before leasing the lands out.
Yeah, hi, I'm Chris Mikowski. Morning, good afternoon, I should say. You're completely right. It's sort of splices of what you said. So it is, again, it's a co-management collaborative process. So we wouldn't lease out certain lands or put that out for bidding, without a plan in mind or understanding like some of the resources that would be needed.
Okay, so it's not like a guarantee that if a community or nonprofit wants a particular parcel, it's not, a guarantee that they'll get it, because you guys will make sure that.
Vet it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that the plan must be provided prior to.
Yes.
Accepting an arrangement with a lease. Okay. And I thought I saw something about purchase, but we can't sell public land, so we just want to make sure everything is by lease, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because it's on page 9, disposition of public lands. It does say dispose of public lands if fee simple by lease with options to purchase license. I would suggest that we take that portion out of the bill if it moves on further.
Sure. Are you talking about the edits to 17113 in disposition?
Yeah,
of public
yeah,
lands?
yeah.
So the inclusion within that, the community co-management agreement, that just amplifies the power of the board to engage in these community co-management agreement. The fact that it says
And any public lands got to go to BLNR anyway, right?
correct.
Okay.
Right. And so that's the other assurance is that when there is a plan in place or in mind, that's collaborative with the division that's going to bring it to the board.
Okay.
So there's vetting the entire process.
Sure. All right, thank you.
Well, just to that comment, this has been brought up by some of our other colleagues as well. So the disposition, so reading, the way I'm reading this, correct me if I'm wrong, this allows for, 17113 allows, right, for the disposal of public land, right, in fee simple by lease with option to purchase, licensed community co-management agreement, which would add that in. Or permit, but it would not allow, for example, through a co-management agreement, the actual sale of public land in that case.
Yeah, totally different.
Yeah.
Okay, that's important to clarify.
Yeah, and it does say on line 14 anyway, no person shall be eligible to purchase.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Public trust duties will be adhered to.
Okay, and then the second thing I had, I see Kurt's being very patient. Thank you, Kurt. But for DLNR, under 171C, subsection B, community co-management agreements shall be used solely and exclusively for one or more of the following purposes: preservation and practice of all rights customarily and traditionally exercised by Native Hawaiians for subsistence, cultural, religious purposes, preservation, protection, restoration of archaeological, historical, and environmental resources, rehabilitation, revegetation, restoration, and preservation of native species and habitats, management of parking and visitor activities, or aina education. Within that list, which seems to be very narrowly construed by the way it's written, in lands where, DLNR lands where there's like public recreation and stuff like that, does that fall within this scope?
For sure. So if you look to subsection 4, management of parking and visitor activities, so we can align that with the Hui Makana o Makana, what they do at Ha'aina State Park and some of our other community members, and just ensuring, the rules of the state park are followed, allowing for ingress and egress, and ensuring all of those, many neat details are covered.
But if, for example, I mean, for other stuff like baseball fields and things like that.
Sure. Again, right, that's the collaborative approach, depending on what the need of that public land is. If it has a baseball field on it, might as well have someone take care of it, and it'll probably be improved, et cetera. Yeah, I don't know if that answers it.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, no, there's a couple instances that come to mind. So for example, right, the HPU acquisition, it's got all kinds of pre-existing fields for stuff on there. I think ideally, if there's somebody who wants to be the steward for that, so that.
This would be a perfect example
Yeah.
of what we
Okay.
could do
So
with
you
it.
said it's, it is narrow, but at the same time, I think it's broad enough to include activities
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Would it be helpful if we like specify that, like recreation?
Sure. As in like, let's say management of parking, recreation, visitor activities.
Yeah, something, we'll figure something
Yeah.
out, but. Does that introduce any sort of other, I mean, I get why this is narrowly tailored, right? We don't want to just have people signing up for stuff willy-nilly, or the department just saying, yeah, you guys take care of all of it, for folks who are just definitely not prepared. But, yeah, it seems like there's something there.
We'll go back, talk amongst the rest of the divisions to double check and
Yeah.
send you some language.
Okay, thank you.
Well, another thing too is that whatever is presented here, I think you also need to get to BLNR as well, right? So is BLNR after the fact, or
Yeah.
we do by legislation first, then
Yes.
BLNR?
Yes.
Ultimately, it's up to the BLNR, right, to approve or.
So once this goes into place, then the divisions can start using this tool to work with community, and then they present it at BLNR. And that would be the public
Yeah,
input.
well, I would say that perhaps the legislature should have some role into seeing what those parcels that's going to be leased out be given to us as well, so we know what parcels are going to be sent. I'm thinking about looking at what we did with Act 90 on the transfer of lands from transfer of DLNR lands to DOA and the process.
But the lands are staying with the department.
Anyway, in the
Right.
community stuff, yeah. Well, DOA lands too is still, it stays with DOA on the land transfers.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, as long as maybe the reporting or something, that any of the lands transferred, there's a report coming to the legislature to see what
But-
parcels were given out.
Senator, it's not a land transfer so much as it's an agreement between
Okay,
us and the
community
nonprofit.
And the
Yeah.
nonprofits,
And Vice
okay.
Chair, if I may, I
Alright.
don't, so in setting out concession agreements and leases, this is sort of the same process, and we wouldn't give out a community
Understand. Yeah, I
management
don't
agreement
want
to just anybody who asks
to
for
be there
it.
this meeting, but, okay, all right. Sure,
Further
thanks.
questions? All right, if not, thank you very much. Kurt, thank you so much for your patience. I just wanted to ask, with your wealth of experience in this, is there anything else that, well, I have two questions. So the first one is, well, let me confirm what we said in the specific use cases for which we're authorizing co-management agreements, the HPU example and stuff like that for recreational side lands. Is there language or is there something there that you think would be obvious for spelling that out so that it's it's applicable, but also, narrow and not going to get us into undue trouble.
No, that's a great question, Chair Lee, and I think PEN kind of nailed it. Language could be inserted that includes kind of a generic recreational element of these co-management agreements to broaden it just a little. But you also hit it on the head is by necessity, we have to maintain, or the department has to maintain, a fairly tight bandwidth on these opportunities because it's not a one size fits all. It's going to be a specific case by case relationship. A lot of it's going to be based on capacity of the organization. But the big takeaway is none of these are exclusive dispositions. They're all going to be non-exclusive leases because they're co-management. So look at it as simply we're just extending government's ability to manage public space either on a natural or cultural value or recreational with just supportive and engaged communities that happen to be our neighbors that have capacity to help. And in doing so, back in the past, they had to do it for free. Like Hui Aloha Kiholo lived on grants for years, and there's a little bit of revenue generated from camping. Now there's a chance for the community to share in that revenue from the visitor industry in particular, where we have these areas highly impacted by visitors, and there's an opportunity to collect some revenue either through parking entry or say camping fees. So does that help kind of box it up?
Yeah, I think so. Which takes me back to my second question, which is, do you miss this yet?
Well, look like you're a farmer over there with your nice tea leaves.
Yeah, this is my backyard, and yes, the tea leaf in Kalihi Uka gets this big. I'm constantly whacking it back, but I have to say, and thank you for the question, I don't miss it, but I like being able to drop in on things like this where I have a choice rather than a mandate, and that's very refreshing for me. So, but I miss you guys. That's why I'm here.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we miss you too. All right, thanks.
Okay.
And then, real quick, just from, I guess, a prospective user side, on the.
Yeah, just to go into the recreational, adding that as a possible purpose. So that section was mirrored off of like the Kaho'olawe Island Reserve and the purposes that are already allowed through that. And so the intent of this is really for Malama Aina kinds of activities. The parking and visitor management was at a request of DLNR specifically related to Ha'ena and the things that they do there. But not to say that recreational activities couldn't be covered through a concession agreement or curatorship or other types, but just the intent of this with community co-management was not supposed to be more like recreational kind of use.
Yeah, I think this is our intent on some other situations that could be applicable. So, but that shouldn't impact, I think, what you guys are contemplating.
Well, and if you look at the plan requirements, it does require like Native Hawaiian perspectives and cultural practices as well. So I'm not sure how that would relate to recreational, like baseball kinds of uses, but there's all those other kinds of agreements like leases, things that are already allowed. This is creating a brand new pathway, and it wouldn't allow for leases. That's already something allowed. It's creating community co-management agreements for up to 65 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, just to clarify. Thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Seeing none. Thank you, everyone. So we're at the end of our agenda. We're gonna let's see, 2:38. We'll take a quick recess. All right, good afternoon. We're reconvening the Committee on Water Land on our 1:05 p.m. agenda here in conference room 224 for decision making on a number of bills, beginning with HB 649 relating to small boat harbors. I'd like to defer this for decision making until Wednesday, the 25th. That's this Wednesday here in State Capitol Conference Room 224 at the end of our 1:05 p.m. agenda. So we can work out some of the questions raised by some of the discussion and testimony. Moving on to the next measure, HB 2599 relating to aquatic protection. We'd like to move this forward with amendments, making a few amendments clarifying some of the goals such that reefs and related species shall be maintained at levels no less than the best science and department science advisors determine are able to reasonably withstand the worst bleaching events, coral bleaching events, and threats over the coming decades in order to protect public trust resources and ensure that planning and decisions are made accordingly. Will also enable the department to take temporary immediate action when necessary to protect critically endangered reefs, as well as adopting rules to achieve these broader goals pursuant to the testimony. Finally, change the effective date to upon approval. Any discussion with that? Seeing none, Vice Chair.
Okay. Chair's recommendation on HB 2599, House Draft 1 to pass with amendments. Chair Lee?
Aye.
Vice Chair goes aye. Senator Chang? Aye. Senator Lamusao?
Aye.
And Senator Decord?
Aye.
Measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to HB 2395 relating to the taking of marine deposits. I'd like to recommend passing this with amendments, just changing the effective date to January 1, 3000. Any discussion? Seeing none, Vice Chair. For the vote.
Chair's recommendation on HB 2395, House Draft 2, to pass with amendments with 5 members present. Any voting with reservations? Any no votes? Measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to HB 2361 relating to the Kaneohe Bay Regional Council. Similarly, we'll recommend to pass this with amendments, just changing the effective date to January 1, 3000. If there's no discussion, Vice Chair, for the vote.
Chair's recommendation on HB 2361, House Draft 1, to pass with amendments with 5 members present. Any voting with reservations? Any no votes? Measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next is HB 1823 relating to coastal zone management. I'd like to move this forward with amendments. I want to thank everybody for the discussion on this one, first of all. I think we're going to take a moment to figure this out. But for the moment, we'll, as this goes forward to the next committee, we'll work with the stakeholders between now and then to try and sort out some of the question marks that were raised in some of the discussion here. But for the moment, what we'll do is adopt a language from the Senate Draft 1 of SB 2547, which was the companion measure that we had heard a month or 5 weeks ago, which focuses the measure as it applies to Lahaina. And add in, I'll just note there's also a change we'll make based on OPSD's recommendation and see how that plays out for the testifiers in this committee, which would be on page 3, line 12 under subsection 2, to remove the language and the following should be exempt from special management area use permit requirements, which hopefully resolves all the issues that I think have been raised in some of that testimony. So we'll see what that looks like, but for the moment, make sure it goes forward for further consideration. So any discussion on that?
Okay. Chair's recommendation on HB 1823, House Draft 2, is to pass with amendments with 5 members present. Only those voting with reservations. The Vice Chair will vote with reservations purely for the matter that I think this should be statewide and not to one specific island or district. Any other reservations? Any no votes?
No vote.
Okay. No vote for Senator Decord. Measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to HB 1842 relating to government. I'd like to move this along with amendments, adopting the AG amendments, clarifying the public lands language so that DLNR would have authority over the property, which may help resolve some of the concerns over financing and other things, but we'll take the moment for now as this moves on to the next committee, see if we can get some other additional details on finances and other things that were raised in the discussion. So if there's no other discussion on that, Vice Chair.
Okay, Chair's recommendation on HB 1842, House Draft 2, to pass with amendments with 5 members present. Any voting with reservations? Any no votes? Measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And finally, on HB 2218 relating to the Department of Land and Natural Resources, I'd like to move this on with amendments. adopting the DLNR amendments to ensure the department and applicant for a co-management agreement collaborate in the adoption of that plan. Secondly, adding to the list of public purposes for a co-management agreement, management of public recreational facilities, as we discussed. And then finally, we'll, for the other testimony being raised about the 5-year review, I think for the moment, we'll make it a 10-year review, noting some of the questions over capacity, but also noting the transparency and accountability needed for some of this stuff since it's new. So with that, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair.
Chair's recommendation on HB 2218 House Draft 2 to pass with amendments with 5 members present. Any voting with reservations? Any no votes? Measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you very much. With that, we are adjourned. All right, we're convening the Committee on Water, Land, Culture, and the Arts on our 1:16 p.m. agenda here in Conference Room 224. This is for the purpose of hearing one GM. We heard testimony on this GM last week, but we're going to be voting on it right now. So we'll be taking up GM 651. Submitting for consideration and confirmation to the King Kamehameha Celebration Commission, gubernatorial nominee Zachary Bantolina for a term to expire 6/30/2029. Having heard from the public, sorry, can you guys keep it down back there, please? Thank you. Having heard from the testifier and testimony from the public last week, the recommendation will be to advise and consent on GM 651. There's no discussion on that. Vice Chair for the vote.
Okay. Chair's recommendation on GM 651 is to advise and consent with 5 members present. Any voting with reservations? Any no votes? Hearing none, Vice Chair for the vote. Measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. All right, now we're adjourned for the day.